Defying Brussels, Italy's Deputy Prime Minister and Interior Minister Matteo Salvini says the country would stick to its 2019 budget. This after the European Commission rejected it for increasing the deficit. That, according to plans, would approach the EU limit of 3%. The proposed budget would also add to Italy's debt that is already at some 130% of GDP, more than double the 60% called for by the European Union. For more on this story, Philip Willian joins us from Rome. Philip, is this about more than just the budget?
Yes, I think it is. Basically, it's a major challenge to the EU consensus on fiscal responsibility from Italy's populist government. The Prime Minister, Giuseppe Conte, has said that there's no plan B, so no question of changing the budget, which he said was worked out with extreme care and is a good one. And his deputy prime ministers have been even tougher. The leaders of the League and the Five-Star Movement are in competition with one another to challenge Brussels and show themselves muscular and aggressive towards the European Union. So they've made it quite clear they're not willing to take a step back. And they point out, of course, that Italy has 5 million people living in poverty, and it's time to end austerity and spend to get growth going and use that as a way to bring down the national debt ultimately. So it's a major standoff at the moment between Italy and Brussels.
Philip, how is this feud likely to end?
That's difficult to say. In the immediate future, Italy has 3 weeks to rewrite the budget if they agree to do that. Subsequently, the European authorities can open a procedure for excessive deficit against Italy and potentially slap Italy with a fine sometime next year. But what's actually likely to be more of a deterrent for Italy is if the markets start to really turn against Rome and if Italians find that their life savings are evaporating. It's been pointed out, for example, that Italy already spends as much on servicing its national debt, which is about 65 billion euros a year, as it spends on education, that same figure. So if the pain is imposed by the markets, then I think Italian voters are likely to react very negatively to what's happening, and that could force some kind of a readjustment by the Italians in the course of next year. But certainly a very tense and uncertain situation at the moment, and very difficult to predict how it will turn out at the end of the day.
Philip Willian, thank you for reporting live there from Rome. And for more on Italy's budget crisis, let's bring our business editor, Kate Moody, to the set. Welcome, Kate.
Hi,
Italy's debt is just one of many sticking points. But what else is causing problems for Brussels?
Well, European officials really see this as a step away from fiscal responsibility and towards different priorities. The proposed deficit is still officially within the EU-mandated 3% limit, but it's 3 times higher than what the previous government had outlined. It also calls for the retirement age to be lowered, while the trend across Europe is for longer working time. The most expensive of the controversial proposals is a campaign promise of the Five-Star Movement. It's a basic monthly income. The measure could cost up to 10 billion euros, and not all Italians are convinced that it's worth the trouble. Arno Gunke has more.
An ambitious and costly proposal to try and lift some 5 million Italians out of poverty. Luigi Di Maio, Deputy Prime Minister and Labor Minister, is pushing forward with a basic income for the poor, and a generous one, a maximum of 780 euros per month. Italy's government-run employment centers will be responsible for ensuring that the recipients of the wage meet the necessary criteria. To qualify, the individual must be actively looking for employment, complete 8 hours of community service per week, and must accept one of the first 3 proposed job offers. But many in Italy, from opposition politicians to job center employees, say the measure may be unrealistic.
We have met 2 or 3 times with Labour Minister Di Maio. He didn't explain anything about the basic income scheme or how it will be implemented in job centres.
According to critics, the current state of the job centers is precisely the problem. In Italy, only 3% of unemployed people find work through government-run employment centers, compared with 20% in France and in Germany. Among the reasons, outdated technology and underqualified staff. According to a government survey, 50% of the centers use inadequate computer systems, and only 20% of the center's staff holds a degree. The government says €1 billion will be allocated specifically to modernizing the centers. The citizens' wage could be introduced as early as March of 2019.